Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Shelly Rakheja, your host for the evening, and take immense pleasure in welcoming you all on behalf of Schneider Electric and the Economic Times to Green Yodha, building a greener economy together. As our Indian economy continues to grow, so is the energy consumption increasing exponentially, especially as the growth of the manufacturing sector catches up with the services and agriculture. However, in India, energy sources are predominantly fossils, so the negative impact of this fossil energy on our environment is really huge. As per our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, India will achieve net zero carbon emissions by the year 2070 and will also meet 50% of its energy requirements from the renewable energy by the year 2030. But ladies and gentlemen, this is possible only when we adapt sustainability as part of our policy and development. Energy efficiency is the unsung hero of our climate change and sustainability. Hence, organizations' comprehensive efforts need to be focused on digitalization of energy ecosystem to transform the world, creating an impact on people and our planet. In today's roundtable, we will talk of ideas on how we can make this switch to the new sustainable energy-driven world order. Against this backdrop, the Economic Times and Schneider Electric are taking the lead to initiate a platform and bring together industry experts from various organizations to deliberate and talk on building a greener economy together. We are looking to ideate, experience, share, and focus on various organization efforts by adapting innovation and a collaborative model for action against climate change to meet the corporate sustainable goals. Ladies and gentlemen, now without wasting any more time to initiate the day's proceedings, allow me to invite upon stage the senior editor of the Economic Times, Mr. Ashutosh Sinha, to kindly come on stage and deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Ashutosh Sinha. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give a huge round of applause?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. There's just one word for me that sums up this whole initiative. This is a series that we're doing across the country in partnership with Schneider Electric. And that one word is tomorrow. This is being done for tomorrow and making a tomorrow that is brighter, sustainable, and more realistic, more, so to say, real for all of us tomorrow. And when I say all of us, it includes every one of you here, and not just as individuals, also as industries, as institutions that you represent, that you work with. So that tomorrow and a brighter tomorrow is very important as we speak. And it's also the time when our governments, our policymakers and industry are trying to work together. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So as the country's leading newspaper, as the country's leading business publication brand, it is only appropriate that we try and talk about these issues, talk about what the industry is doing, and try and forge that conversation that happens with everyone together, along hopefully with policymakers, we'd hope. So which is why this is the third in the series that we're doing. We've had similar conversations in Bangalore, we've had similar conversations in Chennai, now Delhi, and we move on to Mumbai shortly. So hopefully we'll have some new ideas cropping up with industries, and we're speaking to a whole variety of industries. So look forward to the deliberations and look forward to the conversations and your questions, of course. Towards the end, we'd like you to ask questions, and we'll come to that in a bit. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sinha, for setting the tone for the evening. And yes, aptly said by him, that we are looking for a brighter, sustainable tomorrow, and this can be achieved only when we all can contribute, not just as an individual, but as an organization, as a association. Together, we can create an impact on people and our planet. Well, moving on, now I would like to invite Mr. Ratnesh Pandey, General Manager, Global Marketing, Schneider Electric, to kindly come on the stage and deliver the introductory remarks. Mr. Ratnesh Pandey.
Hi, good evening and a very warm welcome to all the one. I'm going to talk about one word, and I can bet on this that the next time you hear this one word, it's going to change and it's going to ring a different bell in your mind. And the word is down payment. We're sitting on the 2nd of November. 4 days from now, COP27 happens. We just finished COP26 last year. And COP27 is a conference of parties where the whole world kind of comes together, discusses, deliberates, thinks and decides as to what should be done. This year, COP27 is very clear that we as a world have to deliver down payment of climate actions to match the scale of the impact. And I'm going to show you what is the impact, because maybe we are underestimating the impact, and that's also a thing that we'll show you. I don't want to tell more about the word down payment because we have a very senior audience who's going to deliberate and discuss on the entire, how to build a greener economy together. But I want to leave you with this thought that are we ready to deliver a down payment of actions, each one of us, because we have very senior representatives from different segments, from hotel, healthcare, building, manufacturing. Are we ready with our set of actions to deliver the down payment? So ladies and gentlemen, in the next 600 seconds, I'd also like to do, which is 10 minutes, I'd also like to talk about where are we, where do we need to be, and how is it that we as Schneider can help you partner into this journey. So let me start by giving you a good news, and of course a not so good news. I'll start with the good news because we are Indians, we are perpetually optimistic. We believe in optimism, we believe in hope. There cannot be a better example than the India-Pakistan match that happened 2 weeks back. And we know that we will get over the evil. So let me start with the good news and let me give you some facts, if this works. So here's the good news, and this is something that we've all seen, but let's take a moment of pride and talk about that we are clearly an outlier. India is growing. Look at the economy, look at the percentage. We're planning 7% vis-a-vis what the world is. And India and China, of course, are the outliers across the world. So we are growing. The economy is into the right shape. What's more? That's not it. What's more? Look at these data points. If you look at it, 40% of Indians will be urban residents. Look at some of the states. Look at some of the data points here that we are going to be in the league of the fastest growing cities. What does this mean? This means there are more buildings, more hospitals, more manufacturing, and more of these infrastructure coming up. And all of them have to be ready with that down payment of climate actions. I'm going to keep repeating that word so that by the end of this session, we emphasize enough on that. And the last piece, which is of course something that we all are looking forward to, that by 2030, we are going to become the world's biggest manufacturing hub. Now that's the good news. These are all the good news, but let's now talk about what's the not so good news. And here's the not so good news. Look at this graph here. This graph shows that if the current set of things that we are doing, if we continue to do so, we will not reach that aim and ambition of limiting the climate change to 1.5 degrees. Last year in COP26, the UN said, let's keep 1.5 degrees alive. Look at the data point here. Given the set of actions that we're doing, we will only be able to save 4 gigatons per year. And vis-a-vis what we actually should, if we really have to limit that 1.5 degrees, we should be saving 10 to 15 gigatons of CO2 per year. Are we ready for it? Let's give you some more facts. This is an article that came last week in Economic Times again. Look at this. UN is clearly stating that there is an accelerating climate disaster. And what more does the UN say? It has clearly pointed out elements, and look at these segments. Electricity supply transformation has the biggest potential, but of course there are obstacles that exist. Look at buildings. The best available technology has to be used. The next set of buildings, irrespective of which building it is, it's a leisure, it's a healthcare, etc. The best available technology has to be infused there. Industry and transport, zero emission tech. Finance, of course, if we have any finance heads here, that is one of the biggest enabler, and that needs to change the game. Now that's something that's going on, but let's dive a bit more into data points like which sector emits what amount of CO2. And these are some percentages. Of course, I'll not go one by one, but look at this power generation industries and so on and so forth. So having said all this, if you were to club all this, that okay, this is the not so good news, but then what is it that we do? What's the solution? So there are three main vectors, and I'm sure all of us agree, but we like to talk about that. Three key vectors that can help us decarbonize, that can help us become more sustainable. The first vector is, of course, the supply, the energy supply. How do we decarbonize it? How do we make it a little more, how do we infuse solar, renewables and so on and so forth, which is actually 45%. Look at the potential there. The second one is electrification. How can we become more and more electric? This needs no definition. The entire automobile industry has already pivoted into that. How is it that every other industry starts adopting electrification? And the last and the most important piece, which is usually not seen, not kind of witnessed, is energy efficiency. How can we infuse energy efficiency within our complete system? Whether it's a manufacturing plant, whether it's a building, whether it's any other infrastructure, how do we make the entire processes so efficient that automatically the energy starts getting reduced, the energy consumption, and that has an effect and an impact on your CO2 emission. Now these things put together, if you were to just connect the dots, look at this. For industry, energy efficiency is possible. Digital tools, automation. Digital gives you visibility. At any given point of time, you, your team, can actually get a sense of what's going on, and I'll encourage you to go. We have a booth right here at the end. It's like your own sustainability team. We call it the resource advisor. Imagine a software that gives you 1200 parameters of where do you rank in your sustainability ambition. That's resource advisor for you, and that's for industry. Look at for buildings. All buildings going forward should be IoT enabled, because it's not just to jump on the IoT bandwagon, but it's very important for us and you as a team to know what's going on in your building, and your entire team can get a sense of this. So this is where we are. So the equation, if you were to do, and all of us love equations, if we were to put both of those together, this could be digital and electric. That's the way forward for a sustainable future. Let's also talk about how is it that we as Schneider can partner you in this journey. On my left and on my right, we have EcoStructure, which is the digitally enabled IoT suite of solutions that goes into industry, into buildings, and that's where we've actually transformed a lot of clients, and we can talk about that when we meet you in person and help them meet their sustainability ambition. And here's Green Next, which is a first of its kind solution that helps you become more sustainable. I'll take 60 seconds in explaining what is Green Next. Imagine a microgrid in your own premise. It's yours. It's very much within your own vicinity, and this is what it does for you. It helps you become sustainable because that's using renewables. It helps you, it adds reliability because it's very much in your premise. And here's the best part, it makes you self-sufficient. Now you must be wondering that, and a lot of people at times think about that sustainability can be expensive. Maybe, it hits it may hit my bottom line, I may not be able to kind of do it this year. Here's the silver lining, or here's the best part. This entire thing can be given to you as an energy as a service. This is a model, and we like to talk about a data point which we take a lot of pride. We've had more than 300 plus microgrids built in the North America, of course, and there's no one who's done bigger than us. So we are here, and we want to do it here in this country as well. The last piece which I want to talk about is, this is our time to act. And this is what we can do for you. We want to partner you in this journey. We want to get you sustainably, get you become sustainable. If you're already there, we can help you accelerate right from energy consulting, business responsibility, sustainability reporting, and an array of things. This is what we are here for. This is what we can do. And we invite you and we encourage you all to become a green yodha. So you must be wondering, what is a green yodha? Because there's everywhere a green yodha. Schneider Electric has come up with this whole program, a sustainability initiative, where we are requesting all corporations, businesses, individuals, citizens, and everyone to come together to make the world a sustainable world. And we've been very fortunate to have blessings and guidance of Mr. Amitabh Kant, who was the ex-CEO of Niti Aayog. We've also got some brands who've already jumped on the bandwagon, whom we are helping them become sustainable. So that brings me to my last slide, that we request you all to embark on this journey of sustainability and become a green Yoddha. Our complete team is here and we'll be happy to take you through your sustainability journey as to how can we help you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raknesh Pandey, and I'm really impressed by the way he specified the number of seconds, 600 seconds, 10 minutes, and you're dot on time and on finishing your speech. Well, that talks. This is just a small example. This shows that how sincere the company is in achieving what they set their eyes, whether be the simple presentation or changing the world, making the planet that we're living in a greener, sustainable planet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wonderful starting off today's panel discussion, which is about to start. But before we start with the panel discussion, can I just have this mic on, please? Oh yes, it is on. All right. Before we start off with the panel discussion, let me interact with my audience members and see how well you have slightly trained you, and you might not be up to the alertness level that we would want, but fear not. I'm here to see your alertness level till our stage is being set up for the panel discussion. Should I start with the audience members sitting in the back or in the center? Can I see hands up in the air? Who wants to interact? All right, everybody is hesitant as expected. The opening baller is always reluctant. All right, I'm going to have a small quiz interaction session with all of you to see how alert you are to the theme of the day, building a greener economy together, the Green Yoddha. All right, the very first question to my audience member is, which year did the first Earth Summit happen in Rio? Which was the year of the first Earth Summit that happened in Rio? Think, thanks. All right, let me give you a clue. It wasn't in the 21st century.
95.
95? You're very close, but you're not supposed to be answering. All right, there's a lady. 92, ma'am. Super. You show that women truly rule the world now. Women are the center of attention, and yes, it is the year 1992. Can we give a huge round of applause to the lady here? Beautiful, gorgeous lady who's totally dressed in green. Beautiful, ma'am. All right, our next question. What percentage of India's energy consumption is through coal? We are also coal dominant and dependent, and we produce a lot of coal in India. But what percentage of India's energy consumption? Okay, let me give you the clue. 60 to 65 or 65 to 70. Let me go in the center now. Enough of the front rows. Has said 60 to 65, and the gentleman here says? सिर्फ 5% का फर्क है. इनमें से एक शख्स एकदम सही बोले हैं. It is 65 to 70%. The gentleman here has answered it correctly. A round of applause to him as well. All right, the stage has been set, but I'm really enjoying this. One last question to my audience members. Let me go further back. All right, the think tanks. They're all sitting here thinking, ma'am, what was India's largest... by 2022, what was India's target renewable power generation? What was the target? आपने सर क्या बोला?
Gigawatt.
सर मेरी कंपाउंड आइज है, दिख गया एक जेंटलमैन यहाँ से बोल रहे हैं. 500. That was the India's target of renewable power generation. 500? Very impressive, very impressive. Anybody wants to negate on that? 50 gigawatts. 250. It seems I'm here at an auction. Somebody says 500. Somebody says 250. Going for next. 250 next. 175. Whoa, a tough competition between 250 and 175. 175. 150. Auction is still on. And again, this table wins. Alright, the correct answer is 175 kilo megawatts. That was the India's target renewable power generation for the year 2022. Alright, our stage is set for the panel discussion, and yes, we are gathered here for building a greener economy together, and we have the major think tanks of different industries who will be deliberating on this topic. To moderate this session, we have Mr. Ashutosh Sinha, Senior Editor from the Economic Times. Please give him a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to invite Mr. Ashutosh Sinha up on the stage, our moderator for the session. We can do better with a round of applause. That motivates us and also energizes us. This is also a form of energy that we're talking of. And joining him on the stage, we have our esteemed panelists, but let me share with you that Mr. Sinha is a business journalist who has moved up the ranks as a reporter, news presenter, and editor across renowned media brands, and he's currently a senior editor with the Economic Times. And now joining him up on the stage, our esteemed panelists, please put your hands together and welcome on stage Mr. Arun Mishra, CEO and whole-time director, Hindustan Zinc Limited. Welcome on stage, sir. Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan, CEO, Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited. Welcome on stage, sir. Mr. A.S. Mehta, President and Director, JK Paper Limited. How about the center of audience members also applauding for our esteemed panelists joining up on the stage? Dr. Mradul Kaushik, Senior Director and COO, Max Healthcare. And last but definitely not the least, Mr. Bhupesh Arora, Business Head, Digital Energy Division, Schneider Electric India Private Limited. I extend a very warm welcome to all our members up on the stage, and I hand over the floor now to our moderator of the session, Mr. Sinha.
Thank you so much for... just before we begin, just a small announcement. Mr. Anil Chaudhary was supposed to join us from Schneider Electric. He's Managing Director, Managing Director and CEO. Unfortunately, due to a personal emergency, he couldn't, and Bhupesh has offered to take the questions. I hope I make it easy for you, Bhupesh.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Don't worry.
Okay, that's good. That's the spirit. Okay, thank you, everyone, for joining. And I'd like to start with Mr. Mishra. Interesting times because of the changes that are happening in the manufacturing part for you. Manufacturing as well as the mining part for you. And that's where it gets interesting, because traditionally it's seen as not a very, very sustainable industry. How are things changing for you? And what does this change mean in the current times?
Right. So, am I audible?
Yeah.
So, starting from Paris Climate Agreement and COP26, all of us know those who are producing product like zinc, especially us, we are trying to save consumption of steel by galvanizing steel so that it doesn't get corroded. So our product itself is making the world sustainable by application of the product itself. Second, all the steel makers have a commitment of emission reduction, both scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. And if we have to produce and sell zinc across the globe going forward, we have to demonstrate that what amount of CO2 emission we have cut down in our production. So that's one part of the business need that we need to satisfy. Second part of the business need is zinc production itself is very much electricity intensive, and as we just heard, in India most of the electricity is thermal coal based, 55 to 65% or something like that. So this is not sustainable going forward. So we need electricity, but we don't need electricity from thermal sources, and most of the mining happens on fossil fuel based equipment. And this is also something, it does impact environment inside the mine. It increases temperature, it calls for more cooling inside the mine, it emits diesel particles in the air, which people are forced to breathe that in. So in all considerations, we have to get rid of it and bring in something which is more sustainable. At the same time, if you look at my business-wise, cost-wise, looking at the region of the western part of India where we are, where there are no coal mines nearby, it makes huge sense for us to go green, simply by business economics itself. So for us, like we have declared by 2025, 90% of our thermal power capacity, which is about 500 megawatt, will be closed down. We'll close down our running power plants and convert to 24/7 RE power, because that is the biggest gain that we will have. Of course, parallelly we will work on efficiency improvement things which we talk of, energy consumption reduction, and which are into normally in the scales of 10%, 15%, 20% here and there. We'll keep on doing that. But the biggest benefit we'll get is we have already signed 200 megawatt RE power agreement with power offtake agreement, which will happen from 2024, and we have already taken out expression of interest for supplying another 500 megawatt of 24/7 RE power. There are people who are bidding for it. And then one of our plants in silver manufacturing plant in Pantnagar is already 100% green power. It does not consume any power from the grid which is produced from thermal. So I am quite clear, our vision is very clear. Post 2025, people should see Indian zinc is manufactured with renewable power only. It is not manufactured with thermal power. Indian zinc mining happens with equipment which are battery operated, which are recharged by RE power, and there is no fossil fuel consumption in the mines. So that is the stamp India can go to the world with, that before others have done, we have done that.
Okay, very interesting point, because this is a traditional industry that we're talking about. Mr. Mehta, the challenge to get to the kind of zinc that he's talking about, that also is an important component for paper, more so post-COVID, and some clients may be demanding that. Can you share some details of the changes and the kind of specific products that clients are asking, which is making you to go for specialized products and of course the power part that you can mention?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. In fact, the more I wanted to talk is that the paper industry and the pulping industry is known for very high power consumer, or the water consumer, and also the chemicals. But in fact, a lot of things have been done in last 10-15 years where the sea change is happening, and in fact it is not in the public domain too much, because we have been doing relentlessly in this area. In fact, if you talk about, I was just sharing this, that industry, but at the same time when I talk about the JK paper, in fact from last almost 10 years, we are the net carbon positive and we are net green positive, or the wood positive, because we do a massive plantation in and around, and don't harvest more than 60% of the plantation when we do. Current year, I mean, you will be amazed to know the number. We have already planted 7 crore trees this year, up to the month of September, and I still have almost 5-6 months. And in fact, we have taken a target to plant 10 crore trees, where I may not need those more than 6 or 7 crore trees. So rest of the 3 crore trees planting is to create a more green cover. And this is what the thing is happening, and the whole paper industry is doing in this direction. And in fact, I have been propagating this and requesting all our other industry players to do more and more plantation. This is one part. But also when we talk about the energy part, in fact, at one point of time, our renewable energy consumption used to be something around 20-25%. We have already crossed 60% renewable power, at least the JK paper I can talk. And our target is in next 3 to 5 years 75%, and hopefully, I have already given a target that can we do zero fossil fuel in 10 years time. This is what it is a big challenge, because the paper and pulp industry, all the turbines and the boilers, they are designed for 50 years of life, and the fuel combination is also designed when we install the boilers. So it's not that easy, but still we have already started the work on this, that how do we change the fuel mix so that we have more and more renewable energy. In fact, a lot of things have been done on the technology investment. In fact, 10 years back, the power consumption in producing a ton of paper used to be something around 1500 kilowatt, and today at JK Paper we are at less than 900. We used to consume 1.8 ton of coal for producing a ton of paper, and today we are at less than 0.6. The water consumption is the same story. So in fact, and I would certainly say that the sustainability and the financial performance, they go in hand in hand. In fact, when we talk on the sustainability, in fact, I was new to the paper sector 10 years back, and my first focus was that how do I create a green bank, means the wood bank. And today, 100% wood is sourced from our own captive plantation agroforestry model. And today, from last 4 years, most profitable paper company is JK Paper. So the sustainability and profitability, there is a direct correlation, I would say. When you talked about the specific product, there are customers who are asking the paper produced out of a certified, the FSC certified pulp. And in fact, we are willing to give this because we have certified plantations, and year after year, the certified plantation is going to be much higher. And so that paper will be available.
So traceability becomes very important.
Absolutely. In fact, the digital is playing a very, very big role now, because now I have a digital traceability of all the farmers. But today we have 75,000 farmers involved in our plantation drive, and there is a traceability. I mean, whatever wood I am getting, which farmer, which area this tree was planted, and from where I am sourcing the wood. So that kind of work has been done, and this is what the revolution is.
Well, digitization of agriculture also, and farmers, should I say that? Mr. Srinivasan, the industry is changing. It's again a very traditional. So this is the services part now we are talking about. The industry is changing, unbundling of the power distribution. The opportunity for the consumer, that becomes very important. How's your industry changing in terms of the metrics as well as the opportunities that are emerging?
Sure. Thank you. Firstly, thanks Schneider and ET team for organizing this. In the presentation that was shown, we are the 50% top contributor to the emissions, and we in a sense power sector. And obviously there is a huge RE movement which is obvious across the sector. 100 gigawatt is the capacity today of wind, solar put together, and by 2030 to reach the goals that the country has set for itself, it has to be 500 gigawatt, right? And that is just pure electricity transition. Over and above, if steel has to decarbonize, then hydrogen has to be green, and so the renewable energy capacity will be multifold. Just the current power demand becoming green will need 5x, and then over and above that, the other green requirements. So that part, of course, there's a huge change that we are seeing. In addition to that, because of the economics of solar, particularly rooftop solar is catching up very, very fast, and the unbundling, while it's still part of the draft Electricity Act, but we do think that in the next few years that will become reality. the main aspect of choice. Today, the customer, only large customers have choice. The JK Paper as a large customer or Hindustan Zinc as a large customer has the opportunity to buy green energy. You and I as a household customer today do not have that choice. We get as much green energy as much as the distribution company buys today. But that is very soon going to change. The cap that is there of say 1000 kilowatt, which the open access limit is expected to, or it's already in the draft, to come down to 100 kilowatt. That means that many more CNI customers can avail green energy. In addition to that, the domestic consumer can also buy green power, and that is something that is already a reality in Bombay today, or Mumbai, and it is expected to come across in the rest of the country, the green power, and that will make a huge change. In addition, there are many other aspects like peer-to-peer solar energy. Like if I as a school on a weekend I have very little consumption, but I have set up a solar which is generating a lot more and I have excess power into the grid. Instead of pumping it into the grid and the distribution utility buying it, another customer who wishes to buy that green power can also avail that. So many aspects are getting done today, both on the technology aspect, business model, and a huge amount of change that is expected with both regulations as well as technology playing a part.
Very interesting. As a consumer, you have a choice today, and that opportunity. We know what happens when consumers have a choice. Imagine the 90s when mobile phones came, and suddenly we had a choice. Dr. Kaushik, coming to you now, the healthcare sector. Not quite everyone would be very conversant with what challenges it faces in terms of the green opportunities, but back end, too many things happening. Can you give us a sense of what that change is happening?
I have challenges because my raw product or the raw material is a patient. My finished product is also a patient. So everything that I'm doing in between starts with consumption of so many things. So coming to what I take from the environment and what I give back to the environment. So I take a lot of energy, I take a lot of water, and I give back a lot of trash. So a lot of solid waste, a lot of biomedical waste, a lot of other things. So Max Healthcare, with 3,400 beds, we cater to close to 3 million patients who walk into our hospital annually. Around 303 hours in the hospital. And with 3.2 million square feet of space, I consume close to 229 kilowatt of energy per square meter annually. This is the broad, I'm just talking about the energy. It roughly translates into 100 kilowatts of energy per bed. This is something unimaginable, And I get energy from where? I get energy from distribution channels, from the grid and everything else. There's open access, there's renewable energy. So FY19, I was buying around 19% of my entire energy requirements from green channels. Today it stands at around 45%. So this massive change happened because of sensitization in the community, availability of these renewable sources of energy, and also the willingness of the producers of these energies to sell power at a lesser price probably, and also the willingness of the distribution companies to carry these power. If I just look at the total consumption, 60-70% of the consumption that happens in a hospital or in a hotel like this, because we are all chrome and glass buildings. So 60% of the consumption is on air conditioning. How do I make air conditioning more effective? That's the challenge which I face. I have bought 40% of my energy from the green sources. I still am at combining how the power is generated, and roughly today around 37,000 tons of carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. It's down from 48,000 tons in 2019-20. But again, there are various activities which I have undertaken to give back to the society, to work with the community. One is to achieve carbon neutrality. So we work with community, we plant forests, we plant. There is a technology called Miyawaki technology where you put plants, 3 to 5 plants per square meters in a graded fashion. It's agnostic to the climate, agnostic to the soil conditions. You put those plants and you work with the community. You create a hedge. Every plant that you are going to plant absorbs 24 kilogram of carbon dioxide each year. This year we planted 20,000 trees. Next year I'm planning to plant 50,000 trees. That's one. More than energy, I have a problem of water. I consume roughly 1.07 kiloliters of water per bed per day. It is 1,007 liters of water. It's down from 1,270 liters, which I used to consume 2 years back. Reduce, reuse, use STPs, the sewage treatment plant, which are membrane technology. Reuse the water for flushing, reuse the water for horticulture, reuse the water for irrigation, all those things. But how do I contribute to create more water, to charge all the water that we have? 5% is the potable water.
Yes.
95% is either in the seas or flowing or surface water running away. So water neutrality is again a very important issue for us. So we adopt ponds. So that in villages we are adopting ponds so that those villages can actually use that water. So the 5-6 ponds we have adopted in Ghaziabad, some in Mohali, around those areas. As a CSR, activity, the problem is, each one of us faces, every time winters come in Delhi, we see there is a smoke and there is some parali burning in, some part of the country. How do you incentivize the government? We work with the government. So we work with the governments, provided super seeders to various farming agencies, cooperative societies. So net, our idea is to reduce the energy consumption that we have, increase our dependence on the renewable or the green or open access systems, reduce water consumption, recharge groundwater, and give back to society that in whatever way, whichever way and wherever we can.
Okay. Mr. Arora, each person speaking about the need for making their energy, among other things, more efficient. How does that get measured? And for companies that are wanting to do that, while these are larger companies, for smaller companies and even some companies which are not quite as ahead in the race or ahead in the steps that they take, how should they be going about in terms of their energy efficiency? What steps should they take to begin with?
Thank you, Ashutosh. As Schneider Electric, I think we are helping industry and customers across the country to help them digitize and electrify, primarily achieving their decarbonization goals. So there are a lot of things. I think through our energy management business and industrial automation business, we have already helped reach a saving of 120 million tons of CO2 and trained close to 260,000 electricians while powering up the energy to the homes where the access to energy was not even there. That is a number which is close to 30 million which is there. Now coming to how we are doing. So for Schneider, we started this journey I think way back in 2005, and when we adopted a sustainability barometer where we started to measure the impact of climate change on people, planet, and even on the businesses also. And now 15 years ahead, as we talk, we have deployed a lot of solutions to the industry and buildings which are helping them achieve their decarbonization goals. How do they achieve that? Primarily, again, the first step is to identify the baseline, what they want to achieve, and then they need to define certain goals, what they want to further achieve on that. They need to declare, they need to start deploying the program on decarbonization. And then as we move, we start to ratify. As we speak today, India's RE power, we were talking about the numbers of RE power, 100 gigawatts, 175 gigawatts by 2022. Today, India's 15% of solar power is powered with the solutions which are designed, developed by Schneider in India. As we speak today, again, energy sustainability services is another sector where we are helping our partners to help achieve their energy ambitions, which we are hearing, either a captive energy plant, which is a green plant, or even sourcing or wheeling of power from green sources, which is solar or wind. So we have helped achieve more than 100 customers across the globe with 8,000 megawatts of solar and wind power PPAs signed till date today. Ratnesh spoke about the numbers in US market on microgrid. Microgrid is another area where we are helping our consumers. Today, more than 300 microgrids are already installed, and in India, we already had one pilot in Delhi where we are just testing in San Xavier School. I think Tata is involved in that. I think we jointly did that with the help of European Commission. But I think that is the way forward, how we are going to help achieve decarbonization. So digitize to measure and then electrify to decarbonize is the way how we see forward for the industry to be there. Measuring is going to be really important, and then monitoring and ratifying the same is going to be really key for them.
Okay.
Measure.
Please.
I think very very good points made by Bhupesh. I think India is a highly price sensitive market. At least, and we see that, for example, in solar rooftops, right? For the same roof space, if we go with the X as the price, and you will have somebody giving at 0.8x or 0.9x, and there will be obviously a trade-off that the customer has to do as to whether he wants to go for that 10% premium. And believe me that the degradation of that solar panel will be slower, or the calculation of the units that the customer will get will be as per what we have indicated, versus a guy who is say 0.9x of that amount, and that 10% looks like a saving today, versus what is potentially future benefit with another company, right? And similar is the case with energy efficient equipment. Whether it is lighting is of course reasonably straightforward now, but everything else, the capex cost versus the total cost of ownership, that trade-off, having case studies, having more demonstration units, especially for MSMEs, because the larger corporates have enough bandwidth, enough research muscle to get their own analysis done. But for an MSME, the cost of money plays a huge amount of role in their decision making. So I think that, along with financing, along with the demonstrated savings, or even today models are available where there are guaranteed savings. So I think there is a huge amount of innovation happening in that space, so that barrier which is there with the end customer, that I don't know whether I will get that saving. There are plenty of business models where guaranteed saving is there, and the customer then has to share that savings, and thereby the barrier or the entry barrier of taking that plunge is reduced to some extent.
Okay, I'll come to that MSME conversation as well, but I wanted to understand from you, Mr. Mishra. There are the very obvious benefits of switching to renewable power, and I like to put it as the seen and the unseen. There are the unseen benefits as well. In your experience, can you share some details, some which were very predictable, the advantages that came to you, and then something that came as perhaps a surprise, or perhaps something you didn't expect things would happen at a particular scale?
If you look at the basic concepts of RE power, it was known to human beings for time immemorial. There is nothing new there. I think after Newton's laws came into force, people knew that if you move things up, it will have a gravitational energy. People knew that the radiation has its own energy. So that source or application was never an issue. Issue was, did people really believe that is the best way to live our life? If I look at historically, the discussion that we are having today, in spite of so much of education, without much of the same education, people didn't discuss much when they threw away well-fat based lighting system and adopted electricity. The society didn't discuss much. They just went ahead with it.
Didn't have social media then.
No, it's a question of human beings, net energy to move forward. That is perhaps the more affluent you are, the more you try to stick to what you have. You have a fear that if I move forward, I will lose everything that I had. And the entire movement of conservatism across the globe that you have now is out of that fear. If we change, perhaps the things we are enjoying now with so much of hard work for the last 50 years, we are going to lose. That's where conservatism comes in. These are all naysayers, climate change are naysayers, coal is the best solution. And many people are rejoicing. The Russia-Ukraine conflict is proving the point. Let's have more coal. Actually, it proves the point. We should have done RE energy 20 years back. We are late in the day. This is the time to invest. So that is one thinking. Other thinking is the kind of innovation that would happen in the space of RE. Perhaps it was not thought of, that nobody thought that gigawatt capacity of RE energy could be done. Even cloud storage of energy through either water storage or people are coming out with gravity storage. So that is also not thought of in that scale earlier. Even now, I'm quite clear on this concept that government, if today's world government has to invest in an infrastructure, it has to be only a hydro storage infrastructure. Government has no other business of investing money elsewhere. There has to be large-scale hydro storage infrastructure to be built. That has to be rented to RE players who would be using that as a cloud storage of energy and then supply 24/7 energy. That's the biggest industrial innovation that can come in, and that will make all our complete all the industry will be out of the net. Then comes the cost. Now the cost, if you look at it, it's again a typical human mindset. When we had Department of telephone, it used to be 1200 rupees per set. Today, people are spending more than 100,000 rupees for buying a telephone, which the company manufacturing the telephone doesn't maintain. Department of Telecom used to maintain the telephone. And there is nowhere to maintain. But still you are paying much more for the data that you transmit. Right? So if cost was everything, then people would not have progressed this much. So I firmly believe cost of energy is not the driver. It is the quality of life which will be the driver. People will decide, I will not lead my life this way. I will lead my life this way. And that awareness in the people has to come. And it is coming in a big way. And I am very sure after 5 years you will see people with a certain background, education, qualification will proudly say, I don't ride fossil fuel based car. Or in a housing society, people would put up a board, in this society no fossil fuel based car is allowed. That will be the talk of the town. That's like today people are taking out an iPhone and showing to people with the 3 camera protruding that I have an iPhone. People would be proudly talking about, you go to Hong Kong now, I think 90% of the taxis are Tesla cars. And every taxi driver swears by it, that that's the best car to buy. And that's going to be the situation even in India. Even 5 years back, people were talking that automatic transmission will never work in India. Today, nobody buys without automatic transmission. After 5 years, nobody will buy diesel or petrol-based cars in India, and I'm very clear on that path. That's going to happen. That innovation, change of mindset. Only demerit is with sort of typical WhatsApp communications. There is some, I always love to say that if 2/3 of the students of the class had their say, the teacher would have been teaching, which is completely regressive. Because in the pyramidal structure, majority of the class will be of a lower IQ. But you can't pander to lower IQ people. You have to pander to the top 1/3 of the class who want to go forward.
The data. So it's the data. Ultimately, it's the data that drives. And that's what we've been trying to understand. Ms. Mehta, what does the pandemic and post-pandemic, in terms of the product mix, you also now looking at a different set of products coming in. How's that data, the ask from the consumer, how's that data telling you about the kind? If you can confine, maybe because the rise of e-commerce, new products that you may have introduced, would you like to share a little bit details on that? And the data, how it's driving it for you?
See, we have been listening from last few years, the paperless or the less paper, and of course we have been building all these unstoppable change in our forecasting, in our projection that yes, there will be the less consumption of some category of papers, but fact remains that the country like ours, I mean, globally, yes, the writing and printing paper is degrowing, something around 1% globally. The Western world, it is degrowing something around 5%, the developed economies. And the other part of the world, it is more or less the same, stagnating. The country like ours or some other African countries where the literacy level and education and other thing is not at that level of the Western world, is growing at something around 4-5%, and our hypothesis is that it is likely to continue. But the pandemic has at least shown something else to us, and we have come across some the different changes of the paper application. Because the hybriding model in the offices and also the other way around, so there is certainly the reduction in the paper consumption. But again, the other theory is also the same way it is coming up. Because the reading a book and also seeing a physical paper and the digital or the online, it has a totally different connotation and also the understanding. The retention, concentration, the children or the students in the colleges, they are coming back on the physical. Because what we have seen and the studies have been conducted, that the digital and online is not as effective on the memorization, concentration and the retention of the content part as it is better in the physical. So again, I mean, this is a dichotomy and it will continue. We are very clear that it will continue. But yes, some application will come down. But when there is a debate on the sustainability of the plastic and how do we reduce the plastic, because this is going to remain for 1,000 years and it will not degrade, it will not be compostable. So how do we replace some of the plastic, because we can't replace everything, because there are functional properties and other things, but some application, the massive demand is coming. In fact, the food grade, the cups, the containers, and the demand is so high that in fact for initial 6 months or 1 year, we didn't have capacity in the country to supply that kind of a volume. Today, we are happy that now we have created a capacity. And so the cups, the containers and everything, and now, I mean, the food grade and the food horeca and those things, they are willing to buy this. Of course, there is some cost element, but still there are consumers and they will ask for it. Even in the paper cups, I mean, we see that paper cups, there is a very thin polythene lining in the cup so that it can contain the liquid. And we have already developed a product which has no polythene, and that cup and then the paper glass is available. Only thing is that there is a certain degree of higher cost because it's a different technology.
Correct.
And there are consumers. I mean, you go to Starbucks and the Starbucks people, they are asking us No polythene lining inside the cup. We want a different biodegradable food grade, different coating barrier, and we could do this. It's a totally water-based solution.
Can consumers here
No
or
polymer.
consumers ask for a product like that if they are at a store? Is that possible today?
Of course, it is possible. Like the paper straw. It used to be plastic straw. Today, it is a paper straw. And I mean, this is there. It was only the cost element that it used to be certain cost. And when you go for a renewable and when you go for a sustainable product, initially there may be a higher cost. But rightly, Mr. Mishra has said the cost is one factor. But when we are talking about the quality of life and tomorrow, when we heard this is going to be the reality, and we will have no option other than to go for those kind of applications which are sustainable.
Okay. Dr. Kaushik, while the big brand names for hospitals are in the larger cities, there is the wider opportunity of also changing the public healthcare system, which
A massive change in the mindset. So, starting with the primary care, like what you said, like this education which was being delivered online. So, during pandemic, I'll tell you, 16th March 2020, when it was declared that COVID has not just knocked at our doors, it has actually entered into our drawing rooms. And after 1 week, there was a complete lockdown and everything else. Our outpatient attendance started going down and it came down to almost zero. But patients were looking for the doctors. They were talking to the doctors on WhatsApp, video calls, Skype meetings and everything else. So it necessitated, rather than anything else, that we launch a newer way of dealing with our patients who are otherwise, located at a distance, who couldn't come to the hospital. There were no vehicles, no attendants. Close to 100,000 consults per month were happening online, which was a big change. Nobody thought that medicine could be delivered or consultation could be delivered online. These are repeat patients who had non-communicable diseases, who had poorly controlled diabetes or a poorly controlled hypertension.
and there was also a legal issue there, because I think
I am coming. And the government of India, it was so fast, I'll say lightning fast. They brought out a change in the regulation that the teleconsultation was made, acceptable and legal. So the government acted very fast. The industry acted very fast. I'm not talking just about Max Healthcare. The industry acted very fast. The technology providers, they acted very fast. Zoom was one, Skype was one, but there were so many of them. India is the land of innovation. You can produce the most economical software in this country. Now, what does it require? It requires a video conferencing tool, a carrier, some data that gets transmitted, and some algorithm. And people created those mechanisms in 7 days, 8 days, 10 days. They were boys who just came out of engineering schools. They provided those solutions. And I must thank all of them who actually worked day and night to deliver that. The whole perception changed. So this was one evidence. Now coming to a lot of other things, and it probably saved, if they were using their vehicles, it probably saved how many tons of carbon emission, one can imagine. But when we come to various other things, lab tests, various the services that are required at home. So through technology, there are various the applications which are available in the market. You don't have to really go out. The hospital can come at your home. Whether you require a lab test, whether you require a physiotherapy, whether you require a nursing service, all of these can be delivered at your home. You don't really need, and this is seamless connected care. They are connected to some hub. These are acting as spokes, and this is monitored, regulated care rather than random, unregulated care. So a lot of changes have happened. And I think, on one hand, it was a bad time, extremely bad times for the country. But it actually necessitated a lot of inventions and innovations. And I think they have been put to use by not just by healthcare, but by everybody else in this room.
So, Mr. Arora, so the question then again gets back. How do we as Indian industry adopt some of the best global practices and then better it even from there? How should industry approach it? That pillars, I would love to hear from you. The pillars that should form the next gen, I say, for the change for energy usage and in general the approach that it drives.
So I think as I was hearing Dr. Pradul, so when we all saw this pandemic, there was a huge need of digitization which came in. I think there was every industry, not only hospital, if I may have to talk about hospitality industry, hotels also came up with a similar request. I think contactless movement inside a hotel, in hospital, I think segregation of contaminated wards with non-contaminated wards, and how do we further leverage that. So I think that accelerated the need of digitization. We all were already on a path of digitization, but COVID accelerated everything. And how do we use our resources and data? How do we use that data? Data was always available, but we were not using, to be very honest. We all have modern buildings, and we are generating a lot of data, tons and tons of data, but are we really seeing that data? What are the insights of those data leading to the actions we need to deploy in an environment? In a modern building, we have HVAC, which again Dr. Mradul said 60% of the energy is consumed by chillers, AHUs. We were in a conversation. That is the biggest consuming thing in a building. And building, when we see in terms of energy consumption, may again count to be 40% of energy consumption globally again is with the buildings. And within buildings, HVAC happens to be one of the biggest consumer of lights, and rest of the equipments may not be consuming the energy. So how do we move ahead on that technology? So I think this is the place where the more we digitize, we capture the data and use it rightfully to deploy our solutions and make it future ready as we progress, because we are making the buildings of the future which are expandable and further upgradable in future. So some of the practices what we have started to implement, again, industry again has got some similar things. We heard about renewables being adopted, which is there. We talked about plastic again going away. In our manufacturing also, we manufacture while we produce digital technologies also. For our products, again, we have also committed we'll be 100% single-use plastic free for all our primary and secondary packaging by 2025. Again, we are working with our suppliers again, top 1,000 suppliers who supply raw material for the products what we deliver across the globe will have to work with us. How do they reduce their carbon footprint by 50% in next 2 years, which is there. So these are some of the steps what we are taking. Again, technological innovation. Schneider in India has become one of the 4th hub globally. What do we mean by hub? Again, we were already having 3 hubs, one in US, one in Europe, and in China. When we had made India as the 4th hub for the group, we are going to develop technologies which are needed by the industry for the domestic use and even for the world. So that has already started to lead in that direction. So that has already led to a situation where today 4,000 engineers and inventors are already working in India to deliver these kind of solutions. So as a technology provider, we are understanding and working hand in hand with industry and these kind of infrastructure which are coming in the country to deliver these solutions which will be more digital, electric, and leading to the sustainable future in achieving their decarbonization goals, which is there.
Okay. Mr. Srinivasan, I used the word tomorrow a little while earlier. Now the tomorrow is also that is EV driven. In Delhi, a lot of the commercial vehicles are going to be EV driven, and that policy is in place. And of course, many other states are driving, more than 24 states are driving it. Now here's the challenge. How do the charging for these EVs will need to use ideally the renewable power. How is that market shaping up? How is that opportunity shaping up so that they don't use the coal-based power for powering their EVs?
No, thanks. I think Delhi is really the kind of the EV capital, one can say. Roughly about 2,000 vehicles register every day in Delhi, minimum, right? And there is a huge change that is there. We are seeing about 10 to 12% increase in the EV connections, and that the government expects that close to 50% of any new registration will happen through EV, or all the 50% of the new cars will be EV. That is one part of the story. The other is in the bus transport. There is a huge amount of action that is happening in EV buses, and as a distribution company, we are building substantial amount of infrastructure to power these buses, because they consume a huge amount of power as opposed to 2-3 kilowatt that a car may use. This consumes multiple times more, like 10 megawatt and stuff like that. So that's a real huge opportunity for the DISCOM to increase its energy consumption to that extent. But as you rightly said, it has to come from the right sources. I would say that it's partially clean right now. We have analyzed the EV load that is there, whichever is especially the large load like bus load, and there are two primary time slots that these buses charge. Not very difficult to fathom. Typically these charge from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. right? And then there is another slot in the afternoon when the buses probably come back for one sortie and then go back. So obviously the afternoon one is very, very straightforward. There is solar power available. The ninth one is a real challenge. Apart from the limited hydro capacity that we have, that can power, but the real step forward is when storage becomes much more mainstream, and that is we saw that happening in solar very quickly. That say 2015 to 2020 or 2019, the kind of drop in prices that we saw. Similarly, we expect that storage will also go through that journey. So the green charging, or the whole movement towards greater green, not only for electric vehicles but overall, will be on the back of storage becoming much more commonplace. Not only storage at multiple levels, storage at the generation side, which is a large generation side, storage at the transmission and distribution end, storage behind the customer. It makes sense for a bus operator, for example, to charge his storage and use that in off-peak time, or charge it during the off-peak time and use it at whenever he wants to use it, preferably through renewable energy. So those are the things that are happening today. Of course, storage is still not exactly cost, from a cost benefit perspective, yet needs to mature, but I think that is the big step forward.
Mr. Mishra, the biggest change that will come for you, because on taking off on that storage point, where does that change happen when that storage becomes cheaper for you? Because your commitment to renewable power and then storage becoming cheap, how does it change your operations for your energy needs, for your renewable commitment and your green commitment?
So again, as I say, whether something is cheap or something is costly is your capability, that how much of your current profitability you are ready to sacrifice. It's only in that equation. Today I am having X EBITDA, I will sacrifice 5% of my EBITDA for a good cause. And if I do this, I know in future this 5% EBITDA can be better. So some of the business decisions need not be Q1, Q2, Q3 decisions. It needs to be Y4, Y5, Y6 decision. And I'm a great believer in that. And cloud storage solution, as he is saying, is going to be the reality. We'll have to rent the storage space per gigawatt basis or per megawatt basis. We will have to pay for this. And if we pay for this, in the long run, our businesses will be more sustainable. Nobody will tell us to shut down our business because we are kind of polluting, or rest of the world look at us as a dirty metal we are producing. So that if that is the reality, we have to do that. Little bit of future gauging, as he spoke about the paper and all that. If you look at the history of language and scripts, does anyone know at what point of time Brahmi Lipi vanished? Or at what point of time Egyptian, the way they used to write, it vanished. So today also when we say into the future, the way of writing will vanish at some point of time. We can't predict at what time, but simply because when you are born, you don't start writing, you start speaking. You write much later.
It's a learned thing.
Speaking will remain, communication by sound will remain, but communication by writing is not guaranteed. This whole concept of transferring my thought into writing so that somebody can read and decipher is something like recording your voice in a magnetic tape, running the magnetic tape to listen to the sound. So this is not sustainable. This will vanish. What will be communicated will be, it is only sound and sound. Why does a poet need to write? The poet can record a sound in the poetry.
I wish.
And in the WhatsApp, it can get transmitted to millions of people in you don't have to even print and distribute.
So distribution is somewhat a challenge.
So the future, you have to look at it that way. So these things will vanish. What will remain at the end of the day is smart working. And in the smart also, I would have preferred God to make my body distributing the brain across my spinal cord. Keeping the brain at the center reduces a lot of efficiency of the body. Had the brain been distributed all across the spinal cord, you would have been safer. That whole brain will not die in one go.
There's more place to pick up data from, I would imagine.
So suppose every motor didn't need to get a command from the control room.
The speed is pretty good.
Yeah,
I must say.
It will happen very fast because the industry wants centralized, whether democracy wants them decentralized, and it should be decentralized.
Ms. Mehta, I'm not going to get into whether paper will remain or not. I'm not going to get into it. But something that I would imagine that a lot of people here would be noticing as well. Look at the foods we consume, the processed food that we consume. That revolution is happening in India as we speak. So many new brands there. That requires packaging. And of course, that is an area where I would imagine some of your products are. Now, what is data telling you for the growth for that part of the industry and for the sustainable, since we are building this afresh, it's something new to India, how do we build it in a way that it is sustainable and green for the future as well?
Very good question, and also, as I said when I was talking a few minutes back, the pandemic is only a catalyst. I mean, the change was inevitable. In fact, in the society, I mean, earlier we used to have a kitchen, fresh cooked food and everything. But imagine 5 years' time, this is going to change. We are not going to have the kitchen like we have today. And it is going to be processed food or packed food. It is going to be rampant in time to come. And what will be the requirement? I mean, you need a kind of a sustainable packaging which will keep your food fresh, which will keep the food hygienic and good. And that is what I said, that the requirement of the food grade packaging material is phenomenal today. And it is growing. So globally also, the fastest growing the paper category is the food grade packaging material. And in India, I would say that the growth rate is double digit. In fact, I mean, it's a dream for any industry if a product category is growing with double digit. And it is growing. And now more and more capacity addition is also happening only in the food grade packaging material. And it's a sustainable because it's 100% virgin wood-based renewable product. And it is fully biocombustible, biodegradable. I mean, when I'm saying biodegradable, it's a natural biodegradation. You don't have to do anything. And again, since it is a virgin pulp, which is a wood-based pulp, is fully renewable. And in fact, we have been working so hard in this particular area of the biotech, where how can we have even the wood which is far more, I mean, is the environment friendly and the water efficient and also the land efficient. At one point of time, the species used to take 7 years to mature. Can we have a tree which can mature in 3 years time, 2 years time, so that it needs a lower the quantity of water and also needs the lesser space to grow that tree. So many things are happening, and now even the container, as I said, is a water-based solution coating, no plastic coating, so that it's a fully biodegradable. So many things are happening.
Okay, so one round of questions to each of you before we go to the audience for any questions that you may have. The learnings for you, and as each one of you have gone through the curve to learn for renewable power, renewable energy, renewable practices, green practices, what could other companies in your industry and probably wider industry, because the whole idea is how do we build a greener economy together? If I can request you, Mr. Mishra, first.
A few years back, we started off by putting our own solar power plant, like any other industry would do. So you would put up a 30 megawatt plant here, a 20 megawatt plant there, 30 megawatt plant there, and feel yourself good about it that yes, I have done something. Which is like putting a small incense stick in your house and thinking that whole house has become pavitra, so to say. Okay. So that's what we used to do. But then we realized this way we cannot do this journey of sustainability. It's not possible. You need professional players who are into the RE business, who can put up for you 500 megawatt, 1000 megawatt kind of a capacity, and you need it 24/7. All of us, I mean 2 years back, we were resigned to the fate that solar means 20% plant load factor, only 12 hours, that too fluctuating, you can't do anything. This is what life is. Today it is not so. They are all, it's a hybrid, solar plus wind combined with hydro storage and 24/7 industry grade, stable power. You can run in big industry, steel mills with it. So these last 2 years we have learned the lesson. So that's how we have now gone into this, tying up with professional players and getting into. That's a big learning. You can't do yourself everything, putting a plant here and a plant there, and that's not possible.
Mr. Srinivasan, because MSMEs can also flower when they have renewable power, because it opens newer opportunities for them, what is the learning that your learning, as in the company's learning, that could help be the breeding ground for MSMEs and SMEs as well?
So there, I guess one big learning is aggregation, because most of these MSMEs or most of the MSMEs will be in an industrial association, MIDC, DSIDC, whatever is the equivalent. So I think we have had very good traction with through those channels to basically reach out to individuals, and then if we create one or two good role models in one of the industrial associations, that actually makes it much more credible that they actually see somebody actually saving cost and carbon. That actually has, and from there the person would have a factory in 2-3 other states, and that's how it actually works. So I would say that through the associations is a good way to touch a larger audience. And I would say secondly, that is from the customer side. I would like to share a little bit of personal learning in the organization, is that as a power company, as a power distribution company, one can think that probably the biggest thing we have to do is get more renewable energy into the grid. So that's a clear to-do or a clear task that we have to do. But when we set up our sustainability council or sustainability team and really looked at each and every function within the company, they will have something or the other that they can do as far as sustainability is concerned. And just one example is, maybe two examples I give. One is we looked at our air conditioners, right? Of course, 4-star, 3-star, that is a known thing. But I was amazed to know that there are actually 3 generations of refrigerants in those that are getting used in those air conditioners. And there is basically when I'm refilling the refrigerant whenever it's leaking, at that time we have been changing the old refrigerant with the old one and the new one with the new. Whereas the newer one is 20 times lesser greenhouse gas impact than the older one, right? So actually these are hidden. The big ticket ones are of course the RE conversion and EVs and all that. But at each and every corner in the organization, there is a lot of stuff to do as far as sustainability is concerned. Not just carbon, but looking at the bigger picture. Second example is that sourcing. One is the power that we sell or the power that we supply, but we are also a consumer of huge amount of electrical equipment from Schneider and many others, right? So how do we, we as Tatas would like to lead that journey, that how do we make our supply chain green? And that has been a learning experience, and our team is also here, and I think that is a real, I would say a real grey area or something that has not been figured out fully. Whatever I'm buying today, how do I make it more and more green, and how do I make our suppliers accountable for improvements? So I think that is a big area of focus for us.
Okay, Mr. Mehta, your learning as well as where you see improvements happening in the way you go about your sustainability initiatives, power, and again, because efficiency is another factor which Mr. Srinivasan is raising.
See, in fact, I have said that the learning and biggest learning is that how do I create more green cover around the manufacturing? So the plantation. I mean, just one single, the biggest item and my priority is the plantation. If you do this, the 2 purposes. One, the greening, the employment for the tribal people, because they use employment to those people, and also the renewable source of energy for me, because the biomass we generate out of our own plantation, I mean today it is 60-65%. So that's one. One more, I would say that it is of course the small, but the biggest learning I could think today. In fact, a few years back, I was at near our pulping operation, and there used to be some smell, and it is natural. When you pass through a nearby sugar mill, you will have some kind of a smell, and we assume that ye to hota hai. I mean, what's the big deal? It's not very hazardous, it may not harm us. But I tell you, when I was closer to our pulp area, I said that why the hell this smell is there? Can we do something? No sir, ye to hota hai. And I tell you, this used to be some kind of a methane, the gas which is in the evaporation of the lignin content, and we worked on this. It was first time in the paper industry. Nowhere in the world this is removed. We thought that can we remove this? And the biggest example of sustainability, and also imagine we put up a small technology that how can I recover this methane and convert into the fuel. And we did this, and I would say that the payback was just 8 months.
Wow.
In 8 months that investment was recovered, and now there is no smell. That's the learning, the innovation.
Dr. Kaushik, anything that you'd like to share? Because again, you were mentioning about, biomedical waste being mixed with the general waste. That could be, well, hazardous is a very polite term for that.
So again, as a responsible and sensitive organization, and healthcare poses the dual risk. It generates a lot of biomedical waste, like you said, a lot of solid waste as well. In addition to other kind of stuff which goes into RSTPs, ETPs, the blood, body fluids, so many things. Our focus has largely been on and very intensely been on training, behavioral trainings, and it's a culture which we need to build. And we've been very fortunate that we have been able to build this culture where we have been able to reduce solid waste generation by around 30-35% over the last 2 years. A lot of packaging material which comes in hospitals, the bottles, the other things, they come packed in large boxes. They used to come packed in styrofoam and other thing, which has of course been banned by the government as of today. How to dispose all of that, empty cans, glass bottles, syringes, needles, So having very tight control on all of this has actually, and creating, champions within the workforce. Some of the workers are very sensitive, very clear about their roles. Some require a lot of supervision. Some require, a lot of mentoring, hand-holding all through. So it's primarily a behavioral and cultural change. That's one. Second is, what are the substitutes that are available? Like Mr. Mehta was saying about, paper that is, which is food grade. And pandemic necessitated, that we use only paper trays and paper things. And we actually continuing with that practice, sir. So I think that really helped us. The completely done away with the plastic spoons, the plastic forks, and everything else, especially in our cafeterias and other things. So imagine a hospital, with 300 patients in the room, and compare it with a hotel like this. In a hotel, no guest is served on the bed. I serve between 5 to 7 meals to the patient on the bed, while he's on the bed. If you come, it's 2,500 meals a day. And that's not my primary business. That's not what I do. Now clearing, cleaning, everything, it requires a lot of effort. Automating all of these things, whether it's my laundry, whether it's my kitchen, whether it's my, the gardening, everything. So with every area of my functioning, I am able to, and with a lot of pride I say that, we have been able to reduce the consumption of these precious resources, whether it's energy, water, everything. And I think the entire industry, I'm not saying it for myself, the entire industry is doing this. And I think more and more, and again, if you want to learn something, look out. If you want to find faults, look within. So I think that's the practice that we have been adopting, look for the benchmark outside, look for your faults within yourself, compare the benchmarks with your practices, move on, keep on learning. And I think it's not a destination, 2050 carbon neutrality, 2.5, I think Ratnesh was saying, the 2.5 degree climate. 1.5
by 2100.
But I think it is not 1.5, it is not going to limit to 1.5, it will probably go to 2.5.
That's where we want to limit ourselves.
With the current practices. And I think when they may meet in Haram al Sheikh on 6th of November, I think.
Yeah.
So I think both developed world and we are a developing or a semi-developed world. So I think all of us have to look at this. It's not just big hospitals. I think the small hospitals, even households, and I'm actually very pleased with the glass here and a glass bottle here, and not those disposable bottles, 200 ml water bottles. By the time we leave 5-6 kilograms of plastic here. I think these small steps, take us to the journey where we all want to go, sir. I think.
Just to add what you said, in fact, during the COVID time, when we were working on this, can we have a paper which is antimicrobial paper? And in fact, we launched it. It's a specially made paper during that time. And today, the amazing response in the market and a huge volume, it has been built up on the antimicrobial paper.
I think I'll just add to one more thing. We used to have tissue papers and towels, which would be used once and thrown. I think there are towels which are reusable, which are available, which are made of special pulp and
Yes.
I think bamboo and whatnot. So these are reused, these are actually the innovations which came out during all this period, and I think these activities will probably help us, contribute to the first, be a responsible citizen, be a responsible organization, and contribute to the global cause. Ordinary citizens who says they cannot make change. Yes, we can make change.
Everyone can. Mr. Agrawal, for the smaller companies, of course, the larger companies, we've heard some of them, and we do hear from the industry. For the smaller companies who want to embark on this new journey, what should be the first steps so that they can get on this journey and get on it smartly?
For smaller companies, I think it is important. We can understand they may have their own limitations on the investment. So I think Ritesh already mentioned right in the beginning, energy as service is the first step. I think they need to first see how it is going to work versus their sustainability ambition, whether it is going to meet, because what we see today, the energy costs have come down substantially down in terms of green energy. And instead of investing on a capex upfront, I think going to those PPAs, which is important at that stage. And then I think an ecosystem as a technology provider, I wanted to add that as well. I think while I was hearing the rest of the views from other panelists, so how do we make the mobile energy D-level, because we are talking of EV a lot. We are imagining maybe 5,000 cars being parked in a large commercial building. Are we not going to use that energy when the cars are parked? Leave aside the commercial transport, which is going to be using the energy all the time. But today, I think we may have to look into bi-directional energy transfers, because when we know I'm parking my vehicle for 8 hours in an office and that energy is stored in my car, do I transport that energy when it is not in use? And we are talking of mobile energy and all these things. I think as regulations and infrastructure may come up, I think that is a new thing as a future when we see this is going to happen. I think while we are today consuming and we are seeing we are not taking the part from coal-based or fossil fuel-based generation, but the stored power is going to be huge in 5 to 7 years from now. What are we going to do? Can we transport? Can we push it back to the grid? Or consume it within the same building for aircon and rest of the things. So I think that is something which is the next wave, what is going to be coming, and that is where I think as a company, as a technology partner, we would like to deliberate and work more on that, both with distribution companies as well as the generating companies also, and automobile can itself be a generating company.
So, ladies and gentlemen, so you've heard about the seen and the unseen that I was talking about. Something that's going to happen in the future. Any questions that you may have, if you can identify yourself and ask the question specifically directed to any of the gentlemen here. I'm not competent to answer any questions.
That is the first and foremost. From customer perspective, multiple things that we are doing. Number one, of course, we have a huge focus on our demand side management program. Also, we have demand response. We have in fact worked with a company that is part of Schneider Group, AutoGrid, and that is we have worked on auto demand response both for commercial as well as industrial and domestic customers. We have found a very good response on that. So that is a big step forward as far as not purchasing power at high cost and able to regulate that load. That is a big step forward. And we are also offering energy efficiency services to our customers, whether it is for monitoring or even for chillers and drives and stuff like that. So these are some of the steps that we are doing. Retail customers, we have smart meters, so we are able to inform customers about their consumption, especially if they are likely to hit a certain threshold. We inform the customers that you're likely to hit that kind of consumption. So those are some of the steps that we are doing with retail as well as institutional customers. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, sir. And on the employees front, sir, on the social, because predominantly wellness is one of the aspects which is post-pandemic has become mandated for all of us. So
right. So employees, I think I would say that three things that are there important. One is that the ability to pursue, or basically right now our car policies in even companies are a little outdated. Changing that car policy to ensure that a customer or an employee can buy electric vehicles, and it may seem like a trivial thing that the employees are thinking, okay, if I buy an EV, will I get what happens to the fuel component in my CTC, right? So even starting from that simple thing, then carpooling is of course there. Employee wellness, there are multiple programs that we are doing. In fact, we are just going to start another focus program on Swasth, basically 45 years and above, targeted certain like diabetes and stuff. How do we actually get a market change in that? So those are some of the employee wellness programs that we are doing.
Okay, more questions? Sir, please.
Yeah. Myself, H.C. Sharma. I am from Tata Power, Delhi Distribution. And my question is with Mr. Mehta. Because a lot of companies and what they are doing is that they are making the product, and at the same time they are taking the guarantee that it is reprocessed, like electronic industry. They are recycling the waste also. Are you having any plan or target on that part of it, that recycling of the paper, and some of your production coming out of it, maybe a very small percentage to start with?
Good question. In fact, the paper recycling is there, and in fact, India is one place where we are importing waste paper. And I mean, I would say that why should there be the waste paper import in the country? If there is a good collections mechanism and good collection system, that paper can be used. But at the same time, the paper recycling and paper reuse, it is proven that it can be done 6 to 7 times. I mean, you can reuse, recycle, and then again produce a paper. It can happen 6 or 7 times because the degradation also happens. So, there has to be some virgin paper, and the recycling also it has to be, and it is happening. The only thing is that again, it's a question of a habit. It is also a question of some kind of the attitude and temperament. I mean, you feel so bad when the people are just throwing the paper on the street. So the collection that way, it is not the viable and the doable, because if you do the manual collection of this way, it will be impossible. So there has to be a kind of a social habit change where we collect papers and dispose the paper in such a way that it can be reusable. And the paper is 100% recyclable. In fact, the official recyclability and recovery of the waste paper in the country is somewhere around 50%. Globally, it is 80% plus. Whatever the paper is used, it is recovered something around 80%. I mean, you can discount 10, 15, 20% that the recovery is not possible. But we need, as country, we need to work hard on this part. We are putting all our effort. In fact, we are putting one line where we can reuse and use the recovered paper for some product. So there is a kind of a social change and a habit change which is required. It is improving, but it's taking a lot of time.
Okay. Any further questions? Yes, sir. The questions are all being cornered here, but please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Ajay Gawal. I am from Tata Power, Delhi. My question is with Mr. Bhupesh. See, as a power distribution company in Delhi, so we are working in a regulatory framework. So do you have any plan to take the policy to all the green supply chain projects and all as a policy advocacy with regulators and all?
Okay, on the policy regulatory framework, definitely as an industry, we do participate in some of the discussions when the policy changes are being done. But I think we are today as a technology provider do discuss on these aspects with the various nodal agencies and bodies when it comes. But together with the distribution companies and even with the generation companies, I think we can discuss, debate, and put forward what could be the futuristic policy. Because as I was talking, I think bidirectional, today there is no policy. How do you take the power if somebody wants to give a stored power? Even if we create an infrastructure or an ecosystem by which we can deliver that back to the distribution companies or the local aggregator. But I think we can discuss pros, cons, because we are talking of a circular economy here. Because I think unless we change, we discuss, debate on this, it will not happen. And I think the step one is to come to a common understanding that this is possible and we should take it forward.
Okay, I think I have a question to Mr. Vidul Kaushik. Okay. Yeah. Sir, this mobile healthcare and medical testing, basically testing you mentioned. Because nowadays the practice is that you as medical professional go to the location where maximum people are there, so that the testing of even annual medical checkups is possible at that location itself, where some sort of mobile clinic, we had the ideas which we see in Delhi. Like that, Max or Fortis are all the leading health people. We can go to people here and do the services to them. So we can also prevent those people not able to go, or even wasting the viewers who are visiting the hospitals and from various places, and husband, wife both going for medical checkups and all that, annual medical checkups. Can you do this medical checkup at the customers' doorstep? Organizations are going to introduce those aspects into the organization, because you don't have to spend a lot of fuel and all that.
Okay, so the hospital comes to you, or the tests come to you.
Absolutely. So as we speak, this is happening, sir. So not just blood testing, X-ray, ultrasound, ECG, anything that you can think of, except the CT scans and MRIs, which possibly cannot be transported in this country, but I have experienced it as well. When a portable MRI goes from one place to another place and patients are getting tested. But health checks have come home. I think it's, I can say that we have a division called Max at Home. So, and on an average, we do around 400 to 500 checks a day. So people call that, and not just me, the industry has it. So I think I'm not the platform to promote and advertise, but I think the industry has it, and except for, and it's clubbed with physician consult, everybody does it. And if there is a problem, a person may choose to go to a hospital of his or her choice, or from where the requests have come. On a macro level, this is happening, but let me come to a micro level. And on any given day, so we are conducting various camps in various societies, various RWAs, various organizations. Tata Power, we have done multiple camps. NDMC, I don't remember Hindustan, but or JK paper, but we have gone out and been doing all these activities everywhere. And not just everybody is doing this. I think possible to do it. The current logistics, one big issue earlier was when you transport a blood sample from one place to another place, it takes time. Now, availability of those mechanisms where it can be traced. I think Sumita was talking about traceability. Tracing the sample, when was it picked up, when was it transported, when did it reach the lab, when was it put to test. The sample integrity is very important. If the integrity is not maintained, it might give, I would say, wrong results, or critical results may be out of the normal range. So with the advent of technology, the availability of better logistics, I think it's happening, and I'm sure it will only increase in the future.
Okay, we'll have to wrap it up. We have completely run out of time. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. So we'll have to take the questions one-on-one, please, after we are done, please. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for being a wonderful audience.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, and it really has been quite a knowledgeable, engrossing, thought-provoking session, and I'm very happy, delighted, and relieved to know that our industry experts from diverse sectors are contributing to the journey of building a greener economy together by adapting the greener renewable source of energy, reducing the carbon footprint. Thank you so much. We would like to capture this wonderful moment in the form of a group photograph. Can you please have a group photograph? Thank you so much, and we would also like to commemorate this occasion by presenting our esteemed panelists and moderator with a small token of appreciation. Request them to be kindly be up on the stage, and may I please invite? All right, the group photograph session is still not yet done. Stage and present a small token of appreciation to our esteemed panelists and our moderator up on the stage. Oh, we are going with the greener side of the token of appreciation. That is wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely the words have been put into action, and we can see the smallest of the changes that are being put forward to make this planet a healthier, greener planet. We would also like to present a small token of appreciation to our moderator, Mr. Ashutosh Sinha. And yes, may I request everyone, along with Ms. Damini and Mr. Rajat Habib, to kindly step forward for this moment also to be taken as word memory. Can you all step forward, form a group for a group photograph session, please? Yes, definitely. That is bringing a nice change and contributing to how we are giving back to the earth, making it a healthy planet. We want Ms. Damini and Mr. Rajat also to have the greener part, the healthy part. It truly has been a wonderful experience for me as well, ladies and gentlemen. Totally an eye-opener for me to hear about the new innovative ideas that have been shared here, that how the newer source of renewable energy is being adapted and taken forward. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much. You may take your seats. And yes, a beautiful takeaway for all our audience members here as well, and you can put them into use in your areas of work as well. Thank you so much. And now we would like to propose a vote of thanks, for which may I please invite
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So the subject which is coming actually relates to this shloka. And looking at Max Healthcare here, another one comes which is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Bhava Bhavet. And in fact, the subject which is there of sustainability is there for long. And what we have discussed here, and I'm thankful to all the industry leaders, the specifiers, the consumers, the prosumers who has taken time out to share their experiences with all of us. We are doing a lot, but there is a lot to do more. And wherein Schneider is there with all of you to partner on this sustainability journey, I can assure you, me and my team is always there on this subject, whether it is to do with products, solutions, services or software. My colleague Bhupesh has already said that things which are measured, monitored, can be controlled. And in fact, I have seen Ms. Mishra talking, and everybody on the panel also talking, that we have gone way forward. So thank you very much once again for your time and business. Let's contribute to Mother Earth again and again so that it is sustainable. In Hindi, which I actually relate the word, which is chir sthai. I think Mr. Sinha already started with tomorrow, because people sitting here, I think some of them have lived maybe 50%, 60%, 70% of the life. But what we are giving to the people, that is also very important. So thank you once again. Have a nice time with the cocktail and dinner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for proposing the 4 of thanks. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have come to the end of this beautiful day, this evening, where we had wonderful ideas being shared, and we have beautiful takeaways to take away with us, carry with us, and inculcate them in our everyday life as well, not just in the organizations. Yes, together, just as an individual, as an association, as an organization, we can contribute to making this planet a healthier, greener planet and build a greener economy together. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been my pleasure to be part of this evening. And on behalf of Schneider Electric and the Economic Times, I would also like to say thank you so much. You have been a truly wonderful audience. And yes, one more important thing. We did hear the ideas and share, which were being shared here up on the stage. We'd also love to hear your ideas, your views, your feedback. We have a feedback form kept at the registration desk outside. I request all of you, whenever you get the time during the cocktails and the dinner, do go through it, fill it up, and please deposit it at the registration desk. We would definitely love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy the cocktails and dinner. Thank you.